Vaughn, you put that big old fist out there like a superhero.
It happens.
I thought that was a Hulk or something on your end.
Well, both of us, we got some pretty large hands, man.
Hey, man, don't start. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're welcoming everybody back to the Jazz Matters podcast. And today we got special guest, Mr. Eric Johnson, drummer. And me and Eric have been playing around the city of Atlanta a long, long time. And first of all, what we're going to do is invite everybody to go to the website, yesjazzmatters.org. And when you go there, we do have a donate page where you can donate because we are a 501c3 and we are here to preserve the heritage of the music as well as the culture. We also have on the same website the Jazz Matters store, and you can get shirts, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, you can get mugs, you can even get Jazz Matters hot sauce. I know everybody likes hot sauce. But anyway, we got all that available to us, right there on the website. So that's yesjazzmatters.org. Glad to get Eric with us today. And Vaughn, go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know what's happening.
Well, I will say welcome, Mr. Johnson. Glad to have you here with us this afternoon. And my name is Vaughn Coulter, and I am the air personality and host and producer of a show called called Soulscapes on jazzmatters.com. It's an internet radio station here in the city of Atlanta. And I've been doing that for the last, going on 5 years. And so I've been immersed in this music, of course, at least, pretty much my entire life. I think it goes all the way back to when I was about 6 years old, and was very much impressed with a gentleman by the name of Lee Morgan and his composition Sidewinder. So yeah, that thing has had an effect on me ever since then. So I'm also working with a group of folks out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, who are in the plans of trying to establish a great project that's going to be something monumental to the nation. In fact, that they want to open up a jazz museum in Oklahoma City, and I'm working alongside of them, and they're doing some wonderful work. We've got a lot of great backing and a lot of great support coming from folks all over the country on this project. So I'm very much thankful for that project coming along my way and being able to participate in something like that. So this music is about the art form. It's about the preservation of it, and it's about our culture in this nation. Black American culture, and I believe that we got to keep it up. We got to keep doing what we're doing as far as the culture of this music is concerned. It has laid the foundation for all other popular genres that has been created in this country. And see, without it, those other genres would stand, because it's really developed itself into something grand and beautiful, and I'm excited to be part of it. So that's what I'm all about.
You got to remember, you are the and also the co-host of the Jazz Matters. Yeah,
you know what? You're absolutely right, Edwin. You're absolutely right.
Put that out there like that. Matter of fact, you show them your Jazz Matters T-shirt, sweatshirt, right. T-shirt, whichever one it is. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you can get over there at the Jazz Matters store. YesJazzMatters.org. All right. So Eric, I guess you can see right now it's all about fun. And what we're going to do is get a little insight, get everybody to know who you are, and basically where you're from and how you got started in music.
All right. Going back, I'm from Connecticut. I was born in Hartford, grew up in Windsor, suburb of Hartford, and I guess I started playing when I was 7 years old. Got my first set and started taking lessons shortly after there, private lessons. Let me see. I did take some lessons from Hart College of Music later on, private lessons once again. That was in the late 70s, or mid 70s, I should say, and started playing around with different groups, little school groups, schoolmates. Mostly back then, I wasn't playing any jazz, of course. I was playing mostly R&B and just rock, I guess. But I didn't play any jazz till I went to school in Virginia. It was my first exposure and first time playing jazz. When I went to school at Hampton, and just really dove headfirst at that point, because I started to get a good education, exposure and playing wise, playing around. They had a pretty rich jazz community back then, and I was able to get and learn from other people. And I was a music major then, so that was probably my most intense period as far as learning and getting exposed to the music. I got to Atlanta in '79, and I think that's when I met you shortly thereafter. I think jazz was much more happening back then.
Yeah, definitely in the city here.
Yeah.
A lot more to do back then.
A lot more to do, a lot more places to play. And that was what, '79. So I started, of course, playing around the city, and I did a little bit of touring with Gene Carn around the U.S. Not too much, more so the East Coast, and a few overseas gigs. From about, I think it was about 82, 83. And in the meantime, I was playing different genres also, but as far as I mentioned that gig because we played a lot of iconic places like, let me see, the Blue Note in New York. What's that place? The Redondo Beach, the Lighthouse, is it? I can't remember the name of that place.
Hermosa Beach.
I'm sorry?
Hermosa Beach.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So the reason I mentioned those gigs is I met some heavyweights back then. I mean, those were places where musicians, especially like the Blue Note, they, after the gig, they'd have jam sessions, and met some great people. Even what's the guy's name? Kenny Jarrett. I can't remember his name. That's embarrassing. But anyway, and they'd have some incredible musicians. I mean, that was the highlight of the gig, actually, after the gig, because we had a set show to play. And I was surprised that, some of the places you read about and heard on recordings were such ordinary, kind of almost not impressive, but, it was more the people and the energy that was at those places. So I got to hang out and with other people taking me to places besides the places we were playing at after the gig. So after that, it was kind of a mixture of music as far as the types I was playing back here in Atlanta. I was playing in different R&B groups, different jazz groups, and we had I'm trying to remember some of the jazz groups. I played in one. It was more contemporary jazz, North Side, and we did more of like Dave Sanborn type stuff. But it was based in jazz, more contemporary though. And of course, some of the groups we played in Edwin. Gosh, as you get older, I can't remember as much. But let's see, what's the name of that group we played with? Larry Hall. Do you remember that, Edwin?
It's been a while. I don't even remember the name of the group.
Yeah,
I don't even know if we even had a name. It could have been us.
Yeah.
It was just us. You talking about the one we were dealing with me,
William Green,
Larry, William Green, and that was it, right?
That was it. Yeah, just us four, really.
Yeah, just 4 pieces. Yeah. But the thing about that group, the good thing about that group was it was in contemporary in all its form for the most part. And today, when I hear the groups, especially the younger groups that's actually playing now, especially around the city, and I listen to them, and I'm like, wow, it's amazing how we haven't taken a step from evolution, as far as what they consider jazz is. Because we were doing everything they're doing now. We were actually doing it, the sound, everything from the sound to the concept of playing. We were doing that back then. And it took about almost 30 years for us to see it cycle again. But all these new groups I hear now, it's almost like this is new to them, And it is because it's a different generation. You know what I'm saying? But they don't really understand that nothing's new under the sun, and all the music has pretty much been done. That because I haven't heard anything new. You know what I'm saying? In the evolution of music, so I don't get on them too much about. I mean, I don't talk too much about their concept of jazz because we did it 30 years ago. It's their turn to do it now. But my only thing was, they haven't brought it up from the 30 years past. You know what I'm saying? Because they haven't evolved that much. There are some that have evolved, and those are the guys that are really, really making headways in the music. People like Robert Glasper and all those type of people. They're making headways in the music, but overall concept is pretty much what we did 30 years ago when we had that group.
I think also is there hasn't been a consistent venue where you can see the growth. Sometimes, like you said, it's a new generation, so the whole concept might be new to them. Just take into account.
You hit a really good point. The fact that there are not any venues where they can actually hone their musicianship. Back in our day, we could stay in one location for a month at a time. And it's like a laboratory. You're getting it together. You know what I'm saying? Not only as a group, but as an individual player. And I don't see that happening anywhere right now.
There was one that both you and me played, not together, but which was Dante's.
Right.
You were there 20 years, I guess.
About 20 years.
Yeah. I was there, I don't even know, not that long. Because I just felt it was too confining. I mean, personally, but you know, it was one place where you knew that jazz was performed there. And how long was that open? That was
40, about 45 years.
all
The
right.
actual place, yeah, about 45
Yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah. Because I that was one of the first places I visited when I got here. That was originally back in underground Atlanta, and so that was one. But what I was saying is that you know that the places like back in the day, remember 200 South, or
Right.
I'm just thinking, you know, that went on for a while. At least, you know, musicians new to town could come, a place they can come and get to know other people and get to display their talents. Um, Later on, there was Walter Mitty's, which was another place for a short time. That went on for about what, 7 years, 8 years, something like that. But they had a lot of heavyweights comes to town at that gig who, you know, looking for a place to jam and to see what was happening. Um, there was a few other places. What was that? J.O. Wyatt's place.
Oh, that was Just
Um,
Jazz. It was called
huh?
Just Jazz. It was called Just Jazz.
Just Jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there was places, but through the years, other than those, you know, like I said, I was playing different styles mixed in there, so it wasn't exclusively jazz. Um, but um, now, even now, it's just hit or miss. I mean, I play pretty much whatever comes my way. It's still challenging enough. Um, Whichever way you have to discipline yourself to learn whatever music is thrown at you. So it's good to. I think it's all come from the same source. So you have to use that discipline to um, perform. So even if it's not total improvisation, you know, you have to in other areas you have to use that discipline. So that helps you coming out of the jazz idiom. So um, other than that, as far as uh, performances, I've done
We're gonna
a
let
lot of.
a Vaughn weigh in on because I know he got some things he needs to get off his chest.
Oh,
I just,
all right.
I'm, you know, talking about the history of music, especially jazz clubs in Atlanta at that time. I came here in 1983, and I'm also HBCU. I went to Morris Brown College, and I wasn't too, you know, it was at that time I was young and unattached and trying to figure out what was going on in the city and things like that, and you know, hit a few of the jazz clubs at that time, like that club right there at the Fox Theater, sitting below. What is it?
Right next, yeah,
Churchill.
Yeah,
Churchill
exactly.
Downs.
Yeah, Churchill
Yeah.
Ground. Yeah, and saw some you know, local performers there. And what really got me interested in it is when I came here and came across you know, my introduction to jazz in Atlanta was, of course, WCLK, and
Oh yeah.
I, you know, that was an important cultural aspect of Atlanta that I really enjoyed because I came here from Los Angeles and born and raised there, and so I just look at it like, you know, I think we're struggling memory wise with just about every club that we went to, and so you know, I'm thinking about Cafe 290. You know, that's what's running through my
Oh
head.
yeah.
You know, out there in Sandy Springs and
And
few
this
other
is on now. It's gone now. Yeah,
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, it's gone now. You're right. You're right. It's
Yeah.
gone. So, but it's just the history of the city. And there were, like you said, there wasn't a time in this town where you couldn't find a jam session going on. It was hot everywhere you went. And so, even, if you went over to Blues Alley, there was something going on over there in East Atlanta. And so, I just say that, just the fact that you two are here to be able to talk about this, it gives them information, and it gives them context to the growth and the development of jazz in the city of Atlanta, and it's hard to find that in a lot of cities. But, what Edwin and I are doing right now, Eric, is trying to preserve that all the way.
Yeah.
And it's important that we be able to talk about it like this, because there's a lot of history here in this city, especially when it comes to that music.
Now, Eric, when you decided to take the music on and everything, I know you have another craft, another art form, which is photography.
Yes.
And you balance those two pretty well, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Because you still got them both going, And when did you get started in that photography?
Oh, I was always, from the time I was a little kid, I'd always, back in the day before we had internet, encyclopedias, just reading, just consuming, especially on gigs. That was just an interest that I took up. And especially when I had a lot of time, like I said before, when we used to travel, I used to bring books and just learn as much. I'm still learning, but I've been doing that professionally about 30 plus years now, actually. And it's music and photography are two things I'd be doing whether I'm making money or not. I mean, that you gotta, it just brings you joy, and it's something that just is part of your soul. So you have to just let it out. But it's still restricted.
I understand it. You understand that very well, because art forms are so intertwined into each other, whether it be visual arts or music or even martial arts. They still have basically the same fundamentals that apply to each other, and it's easier. It seems to be really, really easier for a musician to adapt into the other art forms, what I'm saying, as well as his musicianship. Because you and I know there are some musicians that are great visual artists that can paint very well, you know what I'm saying? And you don't really, that's not something that you see all the time. Even with Miles Davis, he dabbled into visual
That's
arts.
right, I remember that.
He would paint. Lenny White would do the same thing. He was a great artist, on his own right. You know what I'm saying? So, but the point is, the same disciplines that you were talking about to move you into one genre of music, whether it be a genre of just playing straight ahead jazz or jazz standards, or even playing the jazz that is basically a little bit more subdued, I would say is cocktail jazz or after hours type stuff, and then moving on into bop and so forth and so on into different phases. You still have to have that discipline to adapt to those forms of music, because you never knew, in a lot of cases, you never knew who you're going to be performing with and where their strengths were in the music, which is a good thing. But going back to the fact that you adapt well with the photography, it's just like a visual artist, and the music, you see. And you had another hobby out there which is I guess you call it what you call it, physical training. You're a trainer.
Oh, personal, yeah.
Personal training. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah. That too is something I've just been doing since I was teenager, really. So I kind of evolved. I've always just had my own equipment at home wherever I'm at, and I just feel it keeps me not only in shape, but it just if I'm away from it too long, I just start getting all these pains, lack of energy, and so forth. So it's more self-preservation, really. And I personally like a lot of people like going to gyms. I just like doing it at home because you don't have to compete with people as far as time. I'm a late night person, as yourself, through the years.
Since the pandemic, I've been trying to go to bed much, much earlier. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's hard to get used to, but I think it's okay.
That's the problem. Yeah. That's the problem. Is like for me, the sleep schedule just sets itself. I've been trying that for years, but it's like but yeah, that is something else I've always done. And I went a step further. During the pandemic, I became certified because I've been training people through the years, but I just had the time and I just said, let me go ahead and do this. And I went ahead and got certified, though I haven't utilized it hardly any since then.
Everybody's still indoors. That's what the problem is.
Yeah. But anyway, that's coming. But yeah, all these three things, like I said, I'd be doing whether it was a career or not. So it's just something that I enjoy doing. So it's always to be there. Yeah.
But it's all one of those things where the artist, in other words, you're not stagnant in one creative form,
Yeah. Well, also some people. One thing I found curious, I don't usually try to relate it to when I'm doing music. I found out that I don't ever usually push that I'm doing this other thing because people usually think you can only do one thing at a time. So it tend to take you a little bit more serious. Like if I'm at the gym, say, oh, I'm also music. Oh, really? Oh, you play birthday. Play for my kid's birthday party. They don't think you're a serious musician or same thing with photography. Actually, a funny thing, for instance, with photography, the most work I've done has been in the rap idiom. I shot most of the major artists. I work for magazines, more so than like jazz or R&B.
Right.
If you saw some of my work, if you go to ejphotography.com, you can see it's almost all the personalities, all the are rap artists that I've shot. But that's work.
Yeah,
that's work.
Dominant right now for the culture right now is rap. No doubt about it. That's where all the radio stations are honing their moneymaker machines is in the rap. Only problem is I have with that is the fact that we got a funny thing out here. Well, in this country, period, we tend to dismiss heritage and culture in our neighborhoods and our cities and stuff for whatever the popular item is of the day. Like I said, rap music, nothing wrong with it, you know what I'm saying? But it dominates the airwaves. So, and everybody here knows when we were growing up, we heard pretty much several different genres of music on radio, and it was the norm. It was normal to hear that. If I heard some Elvis Presley, it didn't make a difference. The DJ come back 2 records later and play some James Brown, you know, and he'd come back a little bit later and play something Jimmy Smith or something. You know, that's just the way it was. You know what I'm saying? So culturally, you had like this melting pot of music and music knowledge and whatever grabbed you within that situation. That's what a lot of musicians tend to gravitate to, you know. Whereas now, a lot of the musicians I see are not even concerned about the other genres of music and their cultural history and base for what they're doing.
Well, what you just mentioned, it's like in contemporary music, like if you're a current artist, if you haven't had a hit in 6 or 8 months, you might be considered old news.
Yeah, you definitely old news.
I mean, there's the thing about it. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Traveling to Europe and other countries, people embrace our culture much more than most of us do.
Yeah,
they know about.
And we always wonder why.
Yeah,
you know, we are not here or there or have gotten to this point or the other. It's because we can continuously give it away. You know, we continuously go for what's the new shiny stuff. You know what I'm saying? When it shines, you know, we go after it. But, you know, like you said, culturally, if we embraced it like we really should, and like we have done in the past, I'm not quite sure. There are a lot of ways you could say it kind of turned, you know what I'm saying? And I call it mutate. It's not an evolution, in my opinion, because we haven't come up musically beyond where we used to be. You see what I'm saying? Even though there's a lot of talented people out there now, but when you go back and you listen to Oscar Peterson, go back and listen to Art Tatum, you go back and listen to all of these giants of the music, and then you have today's musicians, right? This generation of musicians, they will listen to it, but for whatever reason they would be, you know, they would object it. You know, it won't be something that, you know, they were really that interested in. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's because of the instrumentation. Like, in other words, I very rarely hear a lot of young piano players playing an actual piano. I hear them play keyboards, which are layered sound instruments, you know, coming out of the synthesized stuff. But they tend to not, they shy away from the piano itself as the dominant, you know, keyboard in any group, unless they're doing straight ahead, you know, or unless they're doing a type of accompaniment type music that requires that. But it's not, even then, it's not going to be the dominant keyboard. You see what I'm saying? It's still going to be in there, but it's not going to be the dominant keyboard. So that's where I think a lot of it got lost, was in the technology, you know, of the instrumentation. A lot of the heritage and culture of the music got lost there. But it was never really lost because Herbie was doing it back in the 1970?
Yeah, exactly.
And Herbie, Joe Zawinul was doing it about the same time. You know, a lot of different musicians have went and embraced the technology, but they also had that double-edged sword to where when it came to the standards, the culture, the basic, all that stuff, bebop, you know, not smooth jazz, but bebop, swing, all that those different elements, they could do that stuff and wouldn't have a problem with dealing with that. But at the same time, today, most of the kids are pretty much into speed. They want to be speed demons. You know, they want to play everything fast, every note they could possibly get in a measure. They want to play that. And they're proud of that. And it has no weight to it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a gale force wind. You know, it's blowing like crazy. And then when the sun comes out and it stops, what are you going to do? I mean, you know, you all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Whereas you should embrace the sunlight because that's what's trying to keep you there. That gale force wind blowing everything away.
Also, you know, earlier when we were coming up, they didn't have YouTube. Now,
anything.
No, I mean, now you can go back. I mean, back in the day, you know, we have to scramble to get recordings and make cassette tape copies
right.
of different music. And for years, some of them, I've never saw them perform. Like, even if you're not, of course, going to their concerts, but I'm talking about just seeing them perform.
Right.
Like, it was years later till I saw some of my idols, you know, perform, even though not in person, but at least you can go back and see some performances on YouTube. Right. But there's just so much to consume these days for the younger musicians. There wasn't there when we were coming up, and you can see there's like you said, there's a lot of talented kids, and I mean, that's kids. I've seen kids, you know, 8 or 9 years old, you know. I don't know, maybe I was missing it, but I didn't see all that as much when we were, you know, back in the day. So I don't know what kind of effect that has had, but it's definitely changed. But it's brought a lot more access, at least. But there's just so much. It's almost too much. I mean, there's just you can get lost for days looking at different videos of so many different artists.
Right.
So
as a DJ, Vaughn can see that because of the selection of music that he's allowed to play and that he can play, he can go into all those different generations, you know, and basically put it back on the air, so to say, for those who did miss it, you know, and because his music, I mean, his in the radio station that he's part of, he has that flexibility, and Vaughn loves the straight ahead, the standard stuff, the cultural stuff, and that's great because that and at least he gets a chance to really exercise that in his programming, you know. So Vaughn, well, you can talk us more about that anyway, because that's your thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you know, I've often, you know, as a young man, when I living back when I was in LA, Los Angeles, going to junior college, you know, we used to go see, you know, you talking about the stuff we used to go see, Chick Corea at the Baked Potato, and that, which is a jazz club in North Hollywood. You had you know, you talked about the Lighthouse at Hermosa Beach earlier. You know, that's where, you know, you would see guys like Harold Land and you know, there's another club that was in they call it South Central, but it was like, you know, near Watts when I was a kid. We used to see Jimmy. You know, of course, I wasn't old enough to go to the club to see Jimmy Smith, but Jimmy Smith was a regular at this jazz club in LA. And so, you know, but the radio stations in LA, when you talked about, you know, Edwin, you know, dealing with what formats a lot of radio stations, you would hear everything. You would hear it all. You know, there was no one genre or one section of music that was dominating the entire area at that time. It was everything, and everybody stuck to what they knew and how it was broadcast, and that was the fun. Variety is a beautiful thing to have. It's a beautiful thing. You know, we would listen to rock, we would listen to jazz, we would listen to R&B, we would listen to classical music. Back in the day, I remember adult contemporary music, you know, which was called beautiful music. And all of that was available. You know, we had salsa, we had, you know, the Brazilian thing was huge back then, you know, because cats like Stan Getz brought that stuff to the United States. Of course, Dizzy was doing it too, but, you know, it came, and it was like just as effective as any other genre of music, and people ate it up. So now it's like you get this droning aggravating tone that just, you can't grow from, just telescoping everything, looking through the world through one eye. Being myopic is not going to help you in growth artistically. You have to have a variety of things. And I always stuck to this one thing that I always tell young people. Look at the world through a panoramic view. The world is too big to look like, through a telescope. You need a panoramic view to get the full view, the fullness of what this thing is all about, And so when you talked about photography, when we talk about being artists, when we talk about performance art, which I spent 30 years at and being an actor, all of these things make you even, give you, you're more than the sum of your parts. You're everything. You absorb all of this culture, all of this art, and it means something because it develops you character-wise, and you're able to go anywhere in the world, and you can probably be around your friends and see a photograph and say, oh, I know that guy's work, and because you're all in the same thing, you're doing the same thing. I remember when I was a kid growing up, and we used to watch, all kinds of. My mom was like that. She always just, flood us with all types of things to watch, and she didn't take anything for granted, And I remember when I was in high school, and I would talk about, photographs they would show me about Venice, Italy, and the canal and all that, and I told them that's where it was, and these kids were looking at me like, how do you know all of that? So, but it enriches you. It truly enriches you. And so that's what I do with the music. I tell people all the time, I said, look, you like smooth jazz, which that's the foundation of the station that I work at, but it had to come from somewhere. It literally had to come from somewhere. It just didn't develop overnight. Smooth jazz is like Edwin says, it's just instrumental R&B. They're not doing anything fascinating, but I think it has something to do with the fact that most of the music of the early days, guys was like playing, like composition, like their improvisation skills were just off the chain, and they were going places. The average layman couldn't even figure out what the heck is he doing. But you really have to understand. They take it to a whole nother level because that's something spiritually inside of them, and they go outside of themselves because they're expanding the boundaries of the music. I was watching a documentary the other day on James M. Toomey, and he made the statement that was very interesting. He said, all other art forms, you can put your hands on, but music, it puts its hands on you. It draws an emotional impact from you. It's the only art form that can touch you and cause an emotional response. And I said, wow. Wow. Like, I mean, if you think about it, that man was so right.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that does that.
That vibration. Yeah.
It's that vibration. It's that frequency that goes straight into you, And because Edwin and I have these scientific conversations on a daily basis. We talk about frequencies going on through the universe, vibes, these things, that's how the universe communicates. And so, tones and vibrations and sounds. And you think about the instruments that came from the motherland, Africa, the skins on the drums, and they had that tone in them, and they could send messages when the percussions, when the drummers would beat the drums and send a message to the other tribes. And it's like, it's not rocket science, y'all. It's communication.
It's beyond.
It's beyond, yeah. It's communication.
Beyond rocket science.
True that.
When you're dealing with sound, because sound has so many variables to it. I mean, they use sound to do. Some people have even said that they were using sound to create the pyramids. In other words, to move the rock that they were stacking, for the pyramid, because they were too heavy for any man, I don't care. It doesn't matter that it was built a long time ago, centuries ago. A man still hadn't physically become strong enough to even do that. You know what I'm saying? Not on his own. It doesn't matter if he got 1,000 men to lift a stone, and you got a stone weighing 100 tons or something like that. You're gonna have a lot of crushed men. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So physically, it couldn't have been that possible, you see. But with the technology of sound, it very well could have been. So that sound is something that is you can't take for granted, and I think it's, in my opinion, though, it's to be used, for your enhancement, for your advancement. Because think about the way certain people talk. Some people have voices that always sound like they're angry. Some people have voices that sound real, like a calming type of voice, regardless, what the day or night is. They have this calming voice, and all that sound. You know what I'm saying? It's not so much it's nothing else but sound. So sound in the music. You were talking about jazz music. That is basically the sounds that I always said, in my opinion, that was the sound that evolved from the fields. And the sound in the fields, we know that when most of the people in black people in America that were enslaved, the way they made it through the fields was through sound, through song. You know what I'm saying? Those songs, kept them, from just wilting in the field, just dying in the field. You know what I'm saying? Even though it was cruel, for being out there in the first place. But the songs are what kept them emotionally and spiritually stronger than their physical bodies could ever endure. So talking about the music that came from that, then that means that the music from the fields, right, translated into the music of Negro spirituals, translated into the music of the blues, translated into the music of jazz, translated to rhythm and blues. You see what I'm saying? So it keeps going on and on. But the root itself is still in the field. It's still natural. It's nature. It's what it is. So, Eric, now that we've had our music lesson, not getting into all that stuff. But the thing about it is, I wanted to check with you. If you had anything any advice that you can give the younger musicians today, what kind of advice would you give them today about pursuing the career in music and being able to sustain it? It's one thing to play now. A lot of them that are 20 years old and maybe even 30 years old and play music, it's uncertain that they will be able to sustain that the way we have. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't know where it's going. You know what I'm saying? They don't have that same foundation that we talked about a little bit earlier. So what kind of advice would you give them to deal with that? Is it just that, okay, go to school and become an educator and spend the rest of your days teaching high school band? Oh, they don't even have that many high school bands these days, But as a musician, you know what I'm saying, is there any advice you can give them to keep pursuing this music?
That's a hard one because, like you said, it's changed so much. Even in the recording industry, just the last, I guess, 8 to 10 years, for instance, the record companies, it used to be everybody was trying to sign with the record company. Now the record company wants to only sign you if you have a following already built up. It's totally changed. So I I really don't know as far as recording career, how that's done. I guess you have to do your own promotion now. And once again, the best way is you have to do your research, because the way that I used to see it done years ago is no longer valid.
Right, exactly.
So as far as performing, that's, and once again, that's limited to where you're located and the venues as far as performing live. So the only thing left going back is, I guess, YouTube, internet. There's, I would, as far as using this art form, I mean, using the internet to promote this art form, I guess you have to do it the same way some of the commercial artists are doing it, and that is, record yourself and put it out there. I mean, there's just so many, you get exposed to people from different walks of life, different countries you never probably would ever meet in real life. So I would encourage that, even though that's not something I do. But if you're using that to promote, a way of promotion, I would definitely try to utilize that. And the old way was getting some money together, recording an album, which is I guess they're still doing it somewhat, but that's not the way these days for the most part. I guess outside of more so in the commercial genres like R&B and rock, people don't buy albums anymore. Not in the numbers when we came up. So I guess the main way is going to be the exposure through the internet, YouTube, and I guess if you don't you don't have the venues to perform, I guess that's really going to be your only way to
Yeah,
get
that's the only way I can
exposed.
see it. Just
Yeah.
this,
But the good thing about the internet is, or I'm speaking of YouTube now, is that you can see so many different performances, whereas you would never get that exposure back in the day when we were coming up. I mean, you can see so many people and get so many ideas. So I would suggest to use that technology to see what's going on. There's just so much you can get immersed in, from all over the world. And I would definitely use that to bring that into your experience and, utilize that as far as put it in your repertoire and use that. But other than that, that's all I can say. I can't think of any other way. Speaking on another, not another subject, but just like, for instance, I told you I was working in the music, I mean, the photography, doing magazine work. All that dried up almost within a year or two, because when the industry changed, all the bread and butter for the magazines were the independent labels. And when it changed, that kind of went away. So with that went the magazines sales, and people started just going on the internet. So
right.
there's
Well,
there's
I mean, even the education system itself. I mean, take the pandemic for instance. We never, as a country, or no one else, has ever had to go that route. You know what I'm saying? To get people educated, informed, and then a lot of people that started doing it, especially the older people that were working in corporate or in different jobs, they end up finding, well, wait a minute, I can stay here and do this, without having to go into a brick and mortar place, and I can achieve whatever it is I need to achieve, yeah. And so that's the only thing about the education thing with the kids today. They can sit at home and be schooled in a similar way which we are dealing with right now, and never have to go into a school building. Now, I think what happens though psychologically, in the long run, that's going to affect them.
Yeah, I think there's some negatives attached to that.
Yeah, we are social beings. We basically touch each other. You know what I'm saying? In communication. So we need that outlet of person to person. I remember back in the business world a while back when people say, well, the corporations are doing everything by phone and all this. Now, this is back in the day, phones and so forth, and nobody actually get a chance to see whoever they're buying these different products from. And a couple other people decided, well, there are still enough people available in the market that you can actually send or go yourself and meet these people and shake their hand. And that gives you that relationship of almost like you're really in there. Then. I mean, you got a real client that really trusts what you have and what you do. The internet just seems to take that away. And I think it's only because the persons that are dealing with the social media thing has to have a boundary for themselves, about how much use they need out of it, because other than that, what I'm saying, if you indulge in it, 24/7, like a lot of the kids, Eric and Don, when we were growing up, we went outdoors and played, what I'm saying? We've got dirty, in other words. These kids now can sit on a couch, put a little controller in their hand, and sit there until the next day without sleep, That is amazing, you know what I'm saying?
Well, one thing I want to also mention, of course, you got as much formal education because you can learn a lot, but think about what the earlier jazz pioneers used to have to do. Just take recording, for instance. They're recording all at the same time, have to take a perfect take. Now people are like, I'll send you a tape and you can take your time to play. You take 10 or 15 takes. Back then, not only they were doing all that live on primitive equipment, and it still sounds so nice.
And it can't be matched.
Yes. I mean, yeah.
So Vaughn was getting ready to come in. See, I see Vaughn, he's moving around, so he wanted to dive in on that. Go ahead, Vaughn.
I will tell you this, though. The thing that separates all of that is that a lot of these guys, they would go into the studio and do it in one take.
Yes.
And it was incredible,
Yeah.
Although they would do, you get these albums that had like alternate takes, but they would do the alternate takes in one take because they knew what they were doing,
Right.
And it's like and then you can't even quantify the spontaneity, the magic that happens when it's like the first take. And like, I think Miles said, I don't practice. I save that for the actual recording. I save that. He was stalwart in that motto. He's like, guys would say, well, aren't we going to practice, Miles? Miles, hell no. We're not practicing. We're going to do, you practice too much, you give it away. You give away those special moments in the recording that you can never recreate, And so it's just magic that these musicians had that ability. And so that's a lost commodity amongst these. I mean, there's a lot of talented musicians out there today, a lot of young, talented musicians. And I see them struggling with trying to adapt to what happens when it's coming from the internal. There's that magic that happens inside, the stuff that happens in spontaneity, and a lot of them aren't accustomed to that. Because when you talked about jam sessions earlier, that's where that magic happens. when you said
Yes.
when you guys got together during the performances after the regular show and what was happening in those jam sessions, my goodness. I know y'all heard stuff that you were just blown away. These cats were
Yeah.
like really going at it, you know? And so those things, that's how you talked about that lab work. Edwin talked about those clubs that you go to at night and you really experiment with stuff and you take yourself outside of yourself. And you go into those spaces that people can't find, but you find music. These things, they're non-existent today. And so that's what hurts the music a whole lot, because there's no experimentation. There's no freedom to expand that space. And so, you know, we're left with what we're left with, you know, and I hate to use the term mediocrity, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's been the issue in not only, you know, the art world, in the world period. You know, it's accepting mediocrity with it, you know, all the way across the board. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're a carpenter, you know, a lot of carpenters get away with just mediocre work. You know what I mean? But then there are carpenters that are skilled where, you know, it can't be reproduced that well. You know what I'm saying, by anybody else. You know, it's not like something like that. So the music is the same way. And like with Eric and I, we've been around a lot of musicians here, and we played it in a lot of places. We did the European thing, and there's one thing I know, that every time we come back to the States, you know, well, when we were traveling like that, you still, you know, you had to still go out and get that expression from the jam sessions and different places, because you still will, you know, you were still learning all the time. You know, you don't ever get there. You know what I'm saying, so to say. You can't be too far up on top of things to not accept, you know, those kind of issues. The problem nowadays is that no one has anywhere to go, you know, even if they do get off tour. Most of the musicians I know that are touring with big name people, and musicians, when they come off the tour, they sit in the house. I mean, where you going? I mean, you know, they're not at the jam sessions. Now, if they think that they are above that, you know, that's a bad mistake. You know, because there's always somebody out there to clean your clock. You know what I'm saying? And you never know where you're gonna run into them at. And a lot of cases, you can do that in a lot of jam sessions. But all in all, Eric, tell everyone where they can get in touch with you, man, if they need to follow up on you. And also, Eric also teaches privately, you know, with drums and everything. So, but let them know how they can get in touch with you, you know, through websites or email or however you prefer.
Let me see. Websites. I only have photography websites, which is once again ejphotography.com. Email is you can just use Eric at ejphotography.com. Also, to make it simple, I have another one, but that's the easiest one to remember. Do they give out phone numbers? I don't know if that's.
I mean, you know, if that's the way they can get in touch with you, you know.
Well, it's on there anyway, so it is
on the site and everything.
Yeah, it's on the site, but I'll just mention it briefly. 404-210-7204. So if you want to call me directly. And I guess email, website, phone. That's really it. So,
all right. You know what the deal is.
Yes, it's jazzbeatsradio.com. Go to the webpage, and you'll see all of the activities and information regarding the radio station, and keeping track of what little performances there are going on live in the city of Atlanta and around the country, because we do focus in on that as well, concerts and festivals and things of that nature. I can also be reached at my Instagram page at Von Coulter. And I have another email address that I've come up with. It's voncoulter.anbs. That stands for Ain't Nothing But Soul at hotmail.com. That's voncoulter.anbs, Ain't Nothing But Soul at hotmail.com.
Of course, you can always go to yesjazzmatters.org. That's where you can get all the information on what Jazz Matters is doing, all the things that we offer on the site. And like I said, it's one of those sites where it's a little bit of everything in there for everybody. Like I said, the purchasing of the garments is definitely at the Jazz Matters store. And also the donate page is there. So, there's no better nation on the planet than donation.
Yeah, it's true.
And the thing is, we can move forward from there, because Jazz Matters is still trying to preserve the culture and heritage of music. And it's been about a year, I guess now, that because of the pandemic, we had to slow up a little bit because of venue issues and so forth like that. But we'll be doing a small concert featuring myself and it'll be called Edwin Williams and Friends, and I have some of my friends, including Eric, doing this comeback, so to say, and it'll be at the West End Performing Arts Center on Abernathy Road. I think it's Abernathy Road, Abernathy Boulevard in the West End.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll be there on February 13th. That's the day before Valentine's Day. Was it this month? I mean, this year, 2022. Now, we want everybody to try to be as safe as possible. Please stay with the protocols so we can get over this thing, and get back to being normal, Mm-hmm. So we're glad everybody, we're glad for you, Eric, to come and just share a little bit of time with us about some of the things you do. And it's great having you on. So
yeah, my pleasure.
We're gonna go ahead and end this one. So until the next time, you're watching the Jazz Matters podcast. See you. Peace out.
All right. Peace.